Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking a little bit about Gatsby and Drupal. We're going to talk about Drupal quite a bit, but this isn't just about Drupal. We're also going to talk a little more generally about building a compelling content experience. I'm Shane Thomas. I'm a staff software engineer at Gatsby. At Gatsby, I'm typically focused pretty heavily on improving the integration with Gatsby and Drupal, as well as doing some other things with data sources that are pulling data into Gatsby. So as a developer, I'm a developer, I'm assuming a lot of you are developers, and we tend to invest a lot of time building great websites or apps, but we as developers aren't the ones that are using them at the end of the day. So you might be wondering, what's your point? Well, a lot of times the content editors are left behind because we focus so much on the end users, we forget that often, especially with larger websites with a lot of different types of content, the content editors are the ones that are spending the most time actually creating content, editing, and they'll spend a lot more time on the website than most of the end users ever will. But because we can kind of train around some of those rough edges with our content editors, we don't always focus on making their experience as smooth as possible. So sometimes it's a little bit like this. So what do these content editors actually want? Well, it's actually not that complicated, at least at the basic level, right? They want to be able to see what the content's going to look like before it's actually published. They want a content workflow that fits their needs. Not every website's going to want to manage their content the same way. So they want a workflow that's going to fit with them. And they want to know when their content's actually going to go live. So when they click the publish button or schedule it to be published, they want to know that it's actually going to go live at that time. So we're going to do a little demo here in a minute, and what you need, or what this demo has, is a working Drupal 8 site, a working Gatsby site. It has the Gatsby Drupal module, which I'll show you in a little bit, and we also use Gatsby Cloud a little bit. So what about Drupal 9? Well, the Gatsby Drupal module now has a release candidate version at the Drupal.org project page, and this version does support Drupal 9. So you can use it on a Drupal 8 website, you can use it on a Drupal 9 website. This new version also has support for incremental builds. It also supports the Drupal GraphQL module, and it does support preview, which it's done for a while, so that's not new, but it's still there. And we're going to demo that here in a little bit. So I know you're all doing this right now. It's okay. No one's watching. This is a virtual conference. Go ahead. Let's do a quick demo. So I have a Gatsby site here. This is just running locally, just Gatsby develop on my local system. I have a Drupal website here that we're going to talk about. I have Gatsby Cloud pulled up, and we'll walk through what that's doing. And then right here I have pulled up the Gatsby Drupal module. So this module is installed on my Drupal site. But if we start at my Drupal site, I am using Drupal's JSON API module. With the Gatsby module, you can either use Drupal's GraphQL module or Drupal's JSON API module. It does have a lot of additional features if you use JSON API, so that's what I'm using. And I have all the sub-modules turned on to make sure it all works. But I do have an option for Gatsby settings, and this is what we're going to dive into. So the first option here, and this is just a pretty simple configuration form, so it's really easy to set up. You download the module on your Drupal site. It's already sourcing content into this Gatsby site here. But what we're going to do is show how you can set up kind of a quick content workflow where you have one site that can show your live preview, and then it actually, when you save it, it'll trigger a build on where it would actually get deployed to your live site. So here I have a URL, and this is actually just using ngrok, which just forwards this into my local Gatsby development server. So this is actually just getting forwarded in over here, and so that means any content I save is going to be previewable immediately locally. And I also have this incremental build server callback, and that's just available here from Gatsby Cloud. So all I did is added this Gatsby site to GitHub, I added it to Gatsby Cloud, I grabbed the webhook URL, and if you look here at this simple test site, it's the same thing. So this, you can see these are the two same sites. The one on the left is my preview, and the one over here is you can consider this my live site for this demo. And you can see I have it selected to only trigger builds when content is actually published. And then I also tell it what entity types, and entity types are just your different data structures in Drupal. What entity types I want to send to the preview and build servers, and it's files, media, and content. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to add a new article. I'll be real original here and just put Gatsby Days for the title and the body and select an image. And the one thing I'm going to make sure I do is uncheck published. Because we don't want to actually send this or trigger an actual build. This would be if your content editor starts to create some content, they don't want it to be published yet, they want someone to come and review it. So I've saved it, and you can immediately see over here, it shows up. However, if I were to go over here, you can see it's not currently on my build server, and it didn't trigger any kind of build over on Gatsby Cloud. If I come in and I were to publish this piece of content, let's say I review it, it looks good. You can see now this has triggered a new build, so this will take a few seconds. Once this is done, I can go to this page. If I go to the articles page, you can see that now it does show up. So it actually does pull in the content, but it only pulled it in after I actually published it. So that's the basic preview and incremental builds experience that you can now get with Drupal. There's a little bit more you can do though. And some of these are just extra features to make it feel like a little bit more of an integrated experience. So I can actually go into the different content types here. And I'm just going to go in and edit the article content type. And I want to enable a preview button. And I can have this either pop open a new window, or I can have it pop open a sidebar so it'd be sitting right next to the content itself. And I want to enable a preview to kind of replace what Drupal gives you by default. So normally it just gives you some kind of the default text that you enter, but we want to replace that so we can get a little preview right within the Drupal site itself. So now if I go back, and let's just go to one of these other articles here. You'll notice there's a preview of the actual article itself here. So this is just kind of integrated right into Drupal. And keep in mind, this is just the standard what you get with Drupal. You could add a quick little bit of theming to make this look a little bit more embedded into the Drupal editing experience. But it's integrated, so after I saved it, I would immediately see it on this page, what it would look like. You can see there's this Open Gatsby Preview button, which if I click will open a new window, or I could have configured it to open up an iframe over here and just kind of pop open and slide over, and I'd have the editing experience right next to my content itself. So now that we're done with the demo, what's next? Let's talk about the future of Drupal and Gatsby. You saw where it is today. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the next steps are. The first thing is there's more to content editing than just published or unpublished content. In Drupal, there's a pretty nice content moderation system that allows you to set different states as well as set transitions between those states, so you can map how content can move from one state to another. It would be really nice if while you had your Gatsby site and your Drupal site, your Gatsby site could mimic that. So at any point in time, a content editor could see what a draft looks like or what this piece of archived content looks like. As you're building out this content and making changes, you're creating these different revisions. So you could see you might have a currently published revision, but you might also have a draft revision, something that someone started to work on but isn't ready to go live yet. Maybe they're just making changes to the homepage of the site or to an article that's on the website. And ideally, as a content editor, you want to be able to click on that revision, see what it looks like, and even compare how it looks to the current. So when you click publish, you know how it's going to actually look. And one more thing is that content editors really want to know when their content goes live. So when they click that publish button or schedule it to be published, they want to know that it's going to be published at that time. They're not used to having this build process run. They're used to clicking a button and seeing it immediately. And with incremental builds, we're really close, where all we really need now, I think in the near term, is just maybe a little progress indicator on the piece of content or in the menu bar. So when they click publish, it shows them, hey, it's actually working. Give it a few seconds, and once it's done, it'll show them a little indicator showing that the content is live. They can click a button and actually go out and see it on the live website. Eventually, the goal is we don't have to show that indicator because it'll be that fast, but I think the indicator is kind of an intermediary step to get us to that point. And last, editors want to see a preview of their content as they create it. It's kind of disconnected if they build out a page, save it, or click the preview button and then are able to see it at that point. They want to see it as they're building it. So this is just a quick little demo where you'll see as you're typing on the left, it's changing on the right, but ideally, as the content editor is making those changes, they're immediately able to see the preview right next to the changes they're making. And I spent all this time talking about content editors, but if you're like me and you're a developer, we're people too, right? The development experience of building a Gatsby site with Drupal is also important. So let's not completely forget about them. You might be thinking, what about me? So we'll talk a little bit about some of the things with the development experience that are going to improve in the future. So right now, if you're building a really large-scale website with Drupal and Gatsby, you're going to run into some sticking points. You can usually work around them all, but when you have thousands of images and thousands of pieces of content, build times start to get slower, and when you're running this in Gatsby Develop, it can be kind of a painful process. So soon there'll be support for incremental downloads, which means you'll only download or source content that's changed since you last ran Gatsby Develop. And one other item, and this is for developers and for content editors really, is multi-site support. So there's been a lot of talk about being able to build kind of a complex CMS with Drupal that could source multiple Gatsby sites. So in conclusion, if you're a developer, don't forget about the content editors. So ideally they'll be doing this. So that's all I have. Again, I'm Shane Thomas. Make sure to follow me on Twitter if you're not already, smthomas3. Make sure to think about your content editors next time you're building a website or an app. And since this is a recording, I'm just going to assume I'm getting a standing ovation. I've never had a standing ovation, so thank you. I appreciate it.